The Wrong Ride. Part 3, The Final Showdown. Chapter 7, A Storm of Secrets. Lena stood at the edge of the rooftop, the city lights sprawling beneath her like stars scattered across a blackened sky. The wind howled around her, whipping her hair as if urging her forward. She clutched the documents in her trembling hands. Proof of the Whitmores' corruption, the lies they built their empire on, the secrets that had ensnared her family. It all ended now. She had spent too long trapped in their web, suffocated by their power. This was her moment. But the weight of the truth was unbearable. One move, and her sister's world would come crashing down. One choice, and she could lose everything, including her own life. Footsteps approached behind her. She didn't need to turn around to know it was Kane. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice low, urgent. Lena exhaled sharply. "Yes, I do." She turned to face him, searching his expression for something, anything, that could make this easier. But Kane was a storm himself, his dark eyes a whirlwind of conflict, his body taut with unspoken words. He had been her closest ally, and her greatest betrayal all at once. How was she supposed to trust him now? "You told me you cared," she said, "but you used me. You lied to me." Kane flinched, the pain in his eyes unmistakable. "I never lied about that." The weight of his words hit her harder than she expected, but it didn't change the truth. "Then choose." Silence stretched between them, thick with tension. Kane's jaw clenched. "If I choose you, Lena, there's no going back. The Whitmores don't just let people walk away. Neither do I." The confrontation. The night air was thick with the promise of war as Lena pushed through the heavy doors of the Whitmore estate. Every step echoed in the grand marble foyer, each one carrying the weight of her defiance. The chandeliers above glowed like a false sun, illuminating the world of luxury and deception she had spent her whole life navigating. But this time, she wasn't here to be their pawn. Claire was waiting for her. "What are you doing here?" Claire's voice was a whisper, but her eyes, wide and full of panic, spoke volumes. She already knew. "You don't have to go through with this," Lena pleaded. "You're not their prisoner." Claire laughed bitterly, shaking her head. "Aren't I?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "If I leave, they'll ruin me. They'll ruin us." Lena's chest ached. "Then let's ruin them first." But before Claire could answer, a slow clap echoed through the room. Victor Whitmore, the king of this corrupt empire, his presence commanding, his smirk razor sharp. "Such fire, Lena," he mused. "A shame you don't know when to stop." The doors behind them slammed shut. Kane's choice. Kane had never felt fear, not like this. He had spent his life playing games with powerful men, standing in the shadows, manipulating the board. But now, the pieces were out of his control. Lena had walked into the lion's den alone, and he couldn't let her face it without him. Bursting through the doors, he ignored the guards' hands, twitching toward their weapons. "Let her go, Victor." Victor raised an eyebrow, amused. "And why would I do that?" Kane stepped forward. "Because if you don't, I'll burn this whole empire to the ground." Lena's breath caught. He was choosing her. Victor chuckled, shaking his head. "Then let's see who survives the flames." The Final Showdown. The room erupted into chaos. Guards lunged forward, but Kane was faster. He struck hard, dropping one to the floor. Lena grabbed Claire's hand, yanking her toward the exit. "We have to go," she shouted. Victor's voice rang out. "You think you can just walk away?" A gunshot echoed through the hall. Lena spun, her heart stopping. Kane staggered, blood blossoming across his side. "No!" She rushed to him, pressing her hands to the wound. His fingers found hers, gripping them tight. "I'm not losing you." His lips curled into a smirk, even as pain flickered in his eyes. "I'd rather die standing with you than live on my knees for them." The doors burst open, police, agents, chaos flooding in. The evidence she had gathered had done its job. The Whitmores were finished, but as Victor was dragged away, his last words chilled her to the bone. "This isn't over." The aftermath. Days later, Lena sat by Kane's hospital bed, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. He had risked everything for her, for the truth. Claire sat beside her, silent but free. As Kane's eyes flickered open, a ghost of a smile played on his lips. So, did we win? Lena exhaled, squeezing his hand. We survived. Kane smirked. Same thing. But Lena knew better. This was only the beginning, because some wars never truly end, and some secrets refuse to stay buried. Chapter 8: The Last Ride. The Grand Aurora Hotel rose before them like a gilded beast, its mirrored windows reflecting the storm clouds gathering overhead. Lena's fingers twitched toward the flash drive in her coat pocket, a tiny thing that held enough secrets to topple empires. The weight of it burned against her thigh with every step, a constant reminder of what they were about to do. Kane's shoulder brushed against hers as they paused at the entrance, his presence both comfort and complication. She could see the tension in the way his jaw clenched, in the way his eyes never stopped moving, assessing exits, potential threats, the likelihood they'd make it out alive. Last chance to run, he said, the ghost of his old smirk playing at his lips. Lena swallowed hard. The hotel lobby glowed like a jewel box through the glass doors, all crystal chandeliers and marble floors. A beautiful lie hiding decades of rot. Somewhere in there, their families were already trading barbs laced with poison, unaware that tonight, the carefully constructed walls of their world were about to crumble. She thought of her sister's face when the truth came out, thought of Kane's hand in hers as they pored over documents in safe houses, of the way he'd looked at her when he realized what helping her would cost him. No turning back now, she said, and pushed open the doors. The hum of conversation died instantly. Dozens of faces turned toward them. Shock, fury, calculating interest, flashing across expressions schooled into perfect composure. Lena felt the weight of generations of expectation pressing down on her shoulders, the unspoken rules she was about to shatter. At the center of the room, her mother's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Across the way, old man Kane's knuckles whitened around his cane. The air itself seemed to hold its breath, charged with the kind of tension that came before lightning struck. A waiter hesitated mid-step, a tray of delicate hors d'oeuvres tilting precariously. A distant murmur rippled through the room, like the first tremor before an earthquake. The pianist at the grand piano faltered, hands pausing over the ivory keys before regaining their rhythm, playing on as if the impending disaster wasn't unfolding right before them. Kane's hand found the small of her back, steadying her as she stepped forward. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. She could feel the weight of the flash drive in her pocket, the power it contained. Every secret, every crime, every deal sealed with blood. All of it condensed into one small device. Her fingers curled around it, the final nail in the coffin of the world they had both been born into. Somewhere in the hotel, a clock began to chime midnight. A sharp inhale from her mother. A barely perceptible shift in old man Kane's stance. A warning flicker in the eyes of those who had built their empires on the foundations of deceit. Lena reached into her pocket. It was time. Chapter 9. Aftermath. The truth, once unleashed, was a wildfire. Lena stood at the edge of the balcony, the city stretching before her, its skyline painted in the cold hues of early morning. The world moved on as if nothing had changed, but she could feel the weight of it, the shift in power, the crumbling of legacies, the destruction she had left in her wake. She inhaled deeply, the air sharp with the lingering scent of rain and something heavier. Burned bridges, ruined names, betrayal. The headlines had already begun their feast. Whitmore. Empire in shambles. Kane dynasty implodes, a new power vacuum. Who will fill it? Words, just words. But they weren't enough to capture the true cost of what she had done. She had expected fallout, had braced for war. But she hadn't expected the silence. Claire wouldn't take her calls, no voicemails, no texts, just an empty inbox and a truth that cut deeper than any rejection. Her sister had chosen her side, and it wasn't Lena's. Her mother hadn't reached out either, No scathing message, no final desperate plea. Instead, a letter had arrived from the family's lawyers. All assets frozen, all ties severed. Lena Whitmore no longer existed, at least not in the way she once had. She had burned it all down. And then there was Kane. Lena swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the balcony railing as if the metal could steady her. He had been bleeding the last time she saw him, not just from the gash along his temple, but from something deeper, something raw and untouchable. Was it worth it? He had asked. She still didn't have an answer. The hospitals wouldn't tell her anything. Not anymore. Not after she had destroyed everything that tethered them together. Kane was either recovering, missing, or buried in a place she'd never find. The uncertainty gnawed at her. Was he still out there, somewhere, nursing his wounds? Or had his family made sure he would never stand against them again? A choice, a reckoning. Lena had spent her entire life trapped in a game designed by others. Pawn, player, survivor. But what was she now? A villain? A hero? Something else entirely. It didn't matter. She couldn't undo what had been done. Couldn't mend the shattered loyalties, the severed bloodlines, the betrayals that cut too deep to heal. But she could choose who she became next. A new beginning or a final goodbye. The penthouse was a ghost town when she returned for the last time. No staff, no guards, no family. Just the echo of her footsteps on cold marble floors. She packed a single bag. Cash, a fake passport, the key to a safe house no one knew about. A fresh start, or an escape. Before leaving, she glanced at the phone in her hand. A single unread message flickered on the screen. Unknown number. Her thumb hovered over it. It could be him. It could be a threat. It could be nothing. The phone buzzed again. Lena exhaled, stepped into the elevator, and, for the first time in her life, had no idea where she was going. But she knew this. She was free. The phone vibrated in her palm as the elevator doors slid shut. This time she answered.